In this video, we're going to look at a way of being more efficient with workflow creation. Now picture the scenario. You input a large set of data and you add a few tools to it. You run your workflow and the data is then read in, transformed, and then outputted. The dataset is quite large, so it actually takes around 5 minutes for your data to load and for the workflow to run, before you see any results. You then want to make a small tweak to a formula tool you had included. To see the result again, you run the workflow, waiting another 5 minutes for the data to load. This is not a great use of your time. Luckily for us, there is a way of being able to run a workflow whilst at the same time caching the dataset. This essentially means we lock the dataset in memory so that when we run the workflow again, the dataset is already sourced and it will just require the remaining parts of the workflow to run, leading to huge time savings when incrementally building up on our workflow. If the underlying dataset changes, we would of course need to recache the dataset so that the new data feeds through accordingly. Now this is very easy to do, so let me first of all connect to a dataset that I've created to simply illustrate the benefits of caching data. If I connect a browse tool to the input data and then run the workflow normally, we now have to sit and wait for the dataset to load, which although won't take too long, it will take around 2 minutes in total. Some datasets can take a significant amount of time, depending on the amount of rows and columns that are present in your data source. Fortunately, I have the ability to speed this process up with the power of fast forward, so let me bring us to the point where we can see how long it took to load. Now if we add another tool to the workflow, let's suppose we just wanted to deselect a column of data by using the select tool. In order to see the new output, we would need to run the process again. Now this time, however, we will run the workflow but cache the input data. To do this, we can simply select the inputs. In this case we only have one, but if we did have more inputs and we wanted to cache them, we could simply press Ctrl and then select the inputs we wanted to cache. We then right-click and select the option which says Cache and Run Workflow. This will take a similar amount of time as we saw on the first run, but when it's complete, you will notice that the cached datasets have a blue bubble around them. So let me fast forward this data load quickly. Okay, so now let's make another change. So let's go into the select tool and relabel a column. When we now rerun the workflow, you can see that the workflow runs in seconds, saving us a significant amount of time. So caching datasets can help us save a lot of time if we want to iteratively build up our workflows using big datasets. We can add more tools to the canvas and the cached dataset will get used every time we run the workflow. Very efficient. Now remember, if you change the data input configuration, you will have to cache the result again. In fact, Alteryx warns you of this when you click on the data source, as you will have to click continue in order to make any data input changes.